The slap cracked through the executive boardroom like a gunshot. Every conversation died instantly. Crystal water glasses vibrated. A fountain pen rolled across the polished walnut table before stopping beside a leather portfolio embossed with the Romano crest. Ava Mitchell stumbled backward. The force of the blow sent her shoulder crashing into the edge of the conference table. 300 pages of merger contracts exploded across the marble floor. No one moved. 27 executives, 8 international investors, 5 corporate attorneys. Every one of them remained frozen. Ryan Mercer slowly lowered his hand. His expensive watch glinted beneath the recessed lighting. He smiled, not because he had lost control, because this humiliation had been carefully rehearsed. He looked down at Ava as she struggled to steady herself. "Look at yourself." His voice carried effortlessly across the silent room. "You actually believed someone like you could become my wife." A nervous cough escaped from somewhere near the end of the table. Ryan ignored it. "I've spent 2 years pretending." He tugged at the diamond engagement ring that still rested on Ava's trembling finger. Then, with deliberate cruelty, he slid it off. The tiny diamond bounced twice across the marble before disappearing beneath the conference table. I was embarrassed every time people assumed we belonged together. Ava's breathing became shallow. She didn't reach for the ring. She couldn't. Every muscle in her body had locked. Ryan wasn't finished. "You know what the board whispers?" He laughed. "They don't see a future executive's wife. They see an overweight assistant who got lucky." His eyes swept over her body. "You're not wife material." Silence. Then he delivered the final blow. "I only stayed because I pitied you." Someone quietly whispered, "Oh God." Not because of Ryan, because every person in that room suddenly realized something terrifying. The chairman still hadn't spoken. At the far end of the 20-foot table sat Damian Romano. He hadn't moved. He hadn't looked up. He was calmly signing the final page of a shipping contract with a black fountain pen. When he finished, he capped the pen, placed it perfectly parallel with the folder. Only then did he lift his eyes. The temperature inside the room seemed to drop. No one could explain why. Damian wasn't glaring. He wasn't angry. His face revealed absolutely nothing. Yet every executive instinctively lowered their eyes. Marcus Hale, Damian's chief of security, subtly touched the earpiece hidden beneath his collar. Without waiting for instructions, he already knew what was coming. Ryan mistook the silence for weakness. He straightened his tie. "Mr. Romano, I apologize for the disruption. But personal matters should stay personal. I'll have HR assign Miss Mitchell to another department." Damian finally stood. The sound of his chair sliding across marble echoed through the room. No one breathed. He walked slowly around the table, not toward Ryan, toward the scattered papers. He knelt. The most feared businessman in New York lowered himself onto one knee and quietly began collecting the contracts himself. Page by page, every document was straightened, every corner aligned. Only when the stack was perfect did he place it gently into Ava's shaking hands. "You printed these yourself?" It wasn't a question. Ava nodded weakly. "Yes. You corrected 17 errors legal never noticed." Another nod. "You stayed until 3:21 this morning." She stared at him. "You knew?" "I know who protects my empire." A tear escaped despite her desperate effort to hold it back. Damian looked at the tear for only a second. Then he turned toward Ryan. There was no hatred. Only absolute calm. "Repeat it." Ryan frowned. "I'm sorry?" "The sentence." Ryan laughed nervously. "I only said she isn't wife material." Damian held his gaze. Again, Ryan swallowed. Perhaps for the first time, he felt something resembling fear. Still, his pride refused to bend. I said, "She isn't wife material." Damien nodded once. "Very well." Nothing happened. No shouting. No threats. No guards. Ryan smirked. "So, are we finished?" Damien looked past him. "Marcus." "Yes, boss." "Remove his name." Marcus simply nodded. "No further instructions." "None." Marcus pressed one finger against his earpiece. "Execute Black Protocol." Then he fell silent. Ryan laughed. "That's it? You think mysterious code words impress me?" Nobody answered. 30 seconds later, Ryan's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. Private bank. He rejected the call. It rang again. Annoyed, he answered. "What?" The color drained from his face. "What do you mean my accounts are frozen?" He looked toward Damien. "This is illegal." Nobody responded. The phone rang again. Mercer Capital. "Our board has unanimously voted to remove you as managing partner." "What?" "You no longer represent the firm." The call disconnected. Another phone call. His luxury condominium management company. "Mr. Mercer, we've received notice that your penthouse lease has been terminated, effective immediately." Ryan blinked. "What notice?" "We're not authorized to say." Click. Another call. His country club. Another. His private aviation service. Another. His political fundraiser. Another. His personal attorney. Each conversation lasted less than 20 seconds. Each ended exactly the same way. "We're terribly sorry. We can no longer do business with you." Ryan slowly lowered the phone. This is impossible." Damien finally spoke. "No, it's expensive." Ryan looked around wildly. "What did you do?" Damien answered without emotion. "I did nothing. I simply reminded people that every privilege they gave you passed through me first." The room fell deathly silent. One elderly investor unconsciously stood, not out of respect, out of instinct. Ryan shook his head. "You don't control banks." "No," Damien replied. "I know the men who own them. You don't control politicians." "I financed 3 campaigns." "You don't control the ports." "I built them." Ryan's breathing grew ragged. "This isn't over." Damien took one slow step closer. For the first time, a hint of coldness appeared in his eyes. "You believe Romano Global is my empire." "It isn't." He looked toward the skyline beyond the glass wall. "Those ships in the harbor, they sail because I allow them. The trucks crossing the bridges, they move because I permit it. The judges who protect legitimate commerce, they ask my opinion before making certain decisions. The unions, the ports, the shipping insurance, the private security companies, the freight terminals, they are not my business. They are my responsibility." Ryan could no longer speak. Damien's voice remained almost gentle. "You made one mistake." Ryan whispered. "What mistake?" "You thought she was only my assistant." A long silence followed. Then Damien delivered the sentence that every person in the room would remember for the rest of their lives. "You humiliated the one woman I entrusted with the keys to an empire, and you did it in front of the men who swore loyalty to mine." Marcus's earpiece crackled softly. He listened for 2 seconds, then looked at Damien. "It's done." Damien nodded once. Ryan's phone vibrated one final time. He opened the message. Access revoked. Every digital credential he owned had disappeared. Company access, financial access, travel access, even his biometric executive clearance. It was as though someone had erased him from the city. Ryan looked up in horror. "Who are you?" For the first time, Damien smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't cruel. It was the smile of a man who had stopped pretending to be ordinary. I'm the reason this city has had peace for 22 years. And now, you've mistaken my patience for weakness. Outside the boardroom windows, a cargo ship bearing the Romano crest slowly entered New York Harbor. Every executive instinctively stood, not because the meeting had ended, because they finally remembered something they should never have forgotten. Damian Romano was never the most powerful man in the room because he owned the company. He was the most powerful man in the room because the company was only the smallest part of what he owned. Ryan Mercer disappeared from Manhattan before sunset, not because he wanted to, because every door that had once opened for him suddenly refused to recognize his name. His platinum banking profile no longer existed. His biometric access cards failed. The penthouse elevator denied his fingerprint. His private driver apologized before handing back the car keys. I'm sorry, sir. My contract has been transferred. Transferred to whom? The driver swallowed. I wasn't told. That frightened Ryan more than any threat. Nobody was saying Damian Romano's name. They didn't need to. Across the Hudson River, inside an abandoned shipyard hidden beneath an active container terminal, a steel gate weighing nearly 20 tons slowly rolled open. 3 black SUVs descended into the underground complex. The city above knew the place only as Pier 9 Logistics. The underworld knew it by another name. The Vault. No police officer had ever entered. No satellite had ever mapped it. Every wall was shielded against surveillance. Every entrance required 3 separate biometric confirmations. Marcus Hale walked through the final security door. More than 40 men immediately stood. No one spoke. Each man wore a dark, tailored suit. No tattoos, no unnecessary weapons. Only a silver ring engraved with the Romano family crest. These weren't bodyguards. They were Kappa regimes. The men who controlled every legitimate and illegitimate operation connected to Damian Romano. Shipping, ports, private banking, cargo insurance, international freight, luxury casinos, security firms, political donations, even humanitarian foundations. Marcus stopped beside the empty chair at the head of the table. The boss is here. Every head lowered. Damian Romano entered without ceremony. He removed his jacket, placed it across the chair, then sat. No introduction. No speech. 1 sentence. Report. The first capo stood. New York Harbor secured. The second. Kane lost 2 container routes this afternoon. The third. 3 senators requested meetings. The fourth. The governor's office called twice. Damian nodded. Tomorrow. Another capo stepped forward. Ryan Mercer attempted to contact Nicholas Kane. Marcus slid a tablet across the table. He used 6 different phones. All intercepted. The room fell silent. One older capo frowned. Permission to eliminate him. Damian didn't answer immediately. Instead, he poured himself a cup of black coffee. No. Several men exchanged surprised glances. Marcus understood why. Ryan wasn't prey. Ryan was bait. Damian looked around the room. For 7 months, I've watched someone steal from my empire. I already know the thief. What I want is the king who ordered him. No one questioned him. Because no one questioned Damian Romano. Miles away, Ryan finally reached the only man powerful enough to help him. Nicholas Kane answered on the first ring. You finally understand. Ryan's voice shook. He destroyed my life. Nicholas laughed softly. No. He removed your mask. You said he'd never move against me. I said he wouldn't move without purpose. Ryan slammed his fist onto the steering wheel. You have to protect me. Silence. Then Nicholas replied, I protect investments. You are no longer one. The line disconnected. Ryan stared at the dark screen. For the first time, he realized he had become disposable. Meanwhile, Ava couldn't sleep. Everything she believed about Damian Romano had shattered. She had worked beside him for 5 years. She knew how he drank his coffee. She knew every meeting on his calendar. She knew which investors annoyed him, which charities he secretly funded, which books sat on his office shelves. Yet, she had never known any of this. She stepped onto the balcony outside her apartment. Manhattan glittered beneath the night sky. Her phone vibrated. A single message. Mr. Romano requests your presence. No address. Only GPS coordinates. She hesitated, then called Marcus. I've never been there. You haven't. Should I be worried? Marcus answered honestly. No. You should be honored. 20 minutes later, her taxi stopped before an ordinary warehouse on the Brooklyn waterfront. No company logo. No security signs. Nothing remarkable. Until the steel gates opened by themselves. Inside, 8 armed men examined the taxi before allowing it through. Another gate. Another checkpoint. Another. The deeper she traveled, the less the place resembled a warehouse. Finally, the vehicle entered a vast underground chamber. Ava slowly stepped out. She stopped breathing. An enormous digital map of New York covered one wall. Thousands of tiny lights blinked continuously. Cargo vessels, freight trains, truck convoys, financial transfers, emergency response units, weather systems, port traffic. Every moving piece of the city's commercial infrastructure appeared in real time. It looked less like a business headquarters and more like a military command center. Marcus approached quietly. Welcome to the part of Romano Global that doesn't exist. Ava looked around. Dozens of analysts monitored enormous screens. Former military officers coordinated shipping routes. Cybersecurity specialists tracked encrypted communications. Intelligence teams translated conversations in 6 different languages. She whispered, "What is this?" Marcus smiled faintly. This is how New York continues functioning without realizing who's holding it together. At the far end of the room, Damian stood alone before another digital wall. Without turning around, he spoke. "You finally know." Ava walked closer. "I thought I worked for a corporation." "You do. And this? This protects it." She watched dozens of shipping lanes illuminate across the Atlantic. "You're monitoring everything. Everything that feeds the city. Food, medicine, fuel, shipping. If chaos reaches the ports, it reaches every home." She looked at him differently now. "You aren't protecting an empire." Damian remained silent. She continued, "The empire is protecting the city." For the first time, a faint smile crossed his face. "Most people see power. You noticed responsibility." Marcus interrupted. "We've intercepted another encrypted transmission." The largest screen changed instantly. A satellite image appeared. Several cargo containers. One warehouse. One familiar face. Ryan Mercer. Meeting someone. The image sharpened. Ava's heartbeat stopped. Standing opposite Ryan was Nicholas Kane. The man intelligence agencies had spent 12 years trying to connect to organized crime. Marcus looked toward Damian. "We can take them now." Damian folded his hands behind his back. "No, they're finally standing on the same chessboard. I want to know who moves next." Ava stared at him. "You've known all along." Damian nodded once. "I've never been chasing Ryan. I've been waiting for Ryan to lead me to the man hiding behind him." She finally understood. Everything that had happened. The boardroom, the frozen bank accounts, the public humiliation, the surveillance. None of it had been revenge. It had been the opening move in a much larger war, and somehow, without realizing it, she had just become the most important piece on Damian Romano's board. The war officially began at 2:17 a.m., not with gunfire, not with an explosion, but with a single cargo manifest. A young intelligence analyst inside the vault looked up from his monitor. "Boss?" Marcus immediately turned. "What is it?" The Horizon Star just changed destination. The room became quiet. That ship was carrying nearly $600 million worth of pharmaceutical components belonging to Romano Logistics. Its route had never changed in 12 years. Marcus looked toward Damien. The order came from inside our own network. Damien walked to the screen. "Who authorized it?" The analyst hesitated. "Ava Mitchell." The room froze. Dozens of eyes shifted toward Ava. She stared at the screen in disbelief. "I didn't," Marcus answered, before anyone else could. "She couldn't." Damien remained expressionless. "Prove it." No accusation, no anger, just certainty. Ava immediately sat at the nearest terminal. "Give me 60 seconds. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Authentication logs, satellite timestamps, network routes, encryption certificates. She ignored everything else. Then, she smiled. "It's fake." Marcus leaned closer. "How?" "They copied my digital signature. But," she highlighted 3 numbers. "My authentication key refreshes every 37 seconds. This one refreshed after exactly 30. She looked at Damien. "Only someone who stole my credentials, without understanding how I built them, could make this mistake." The room remained silent. Damien finally nodded. "I told you." Marcus smiled faintly. "I know. The person we're looking for isn't smarter than Ava." He only thought he was. Across the East River, Ryan Mercer sat inside a dimly lit warehouse. His suit had been replaced by jeans and a leather jacket. He no longer looked like an executive. He looked like a frightened man hiding from consequences. Nicholas Kane stood beside a shipping container. Unlike Damien, Kane enjoyed displaying power. Luxury watch, gold cufflinks, 10 armed guards. Everything about him demanded attention. "You failed." Ryan lowered his head. "I underestimated Ava." "No," Kane answered coldly. "You underestimated Damien." Ryan clenched his fists. "Why didn't you tell me who he really was?" Kane laughed. "Because nobody knows." He walked toward a massive map hanging on the warehouse wall. "People think Damien owns a corporation." "They're wrong. They think he controls New York." "They're wrong again." Ryan frowned. "What are you talking about?" Kane pointed toward the Atlantic Ocean. "Romano owns shipping routes, insurance, fuel contracts, customs influence. If he wanted, he could stop food from entering this city within 72 hours. Ryan stared at him. "So why doesn't he?" Kane's smile disappeared. "Because unlike us, he believes power should be invisible." Silence settled over the warehouse. Finally, Ryan whispered, "Can we beat him?" Nicholas looked directly into his eyes. "If we make him angry enough, he'll stop behaving like Damien Romano. He'll become the man his enemies still whisper about." Back inside the vault, Marcus received another encrypted report. "Boss, Kane is moving." Damien nodded. "As expected. He'll attack the merger." Marcus looked confused. "Not us?" Damien shook his head. "He doesn't want my company. He wants my reputation." Ava frowned. "I don't understand." Damien walked toward the giant city map. He pressed one button. Hundreds of interconnected lines illuminated. "This is trust." He pointed toward the shipping routes. "The banks trust me. The ports trust me. The unions trust me. The government tolerates me. The people who work these docks trust that every paycheck arrives on time." He looked at Ava. "If Kane proves I can't protect them, I lose everything." Not money. Not power. Trust. Ava suddenly understood why Damien had never retaliated with violence. Fear created obedience. Trust created empires. 3 days later, the billion-dollar merger officially began. Representatives from 5 countries filled Romano Tower. Television crews waited outside. Financial markets watched every announcement. Everything appeared perfect. Exactly as Kane wanted. At precisely 10:42 a.m., every monitor inside the building suddenly went black. Emergency alarms activated. Trading systems shut down. Shipping schedules disappeared. Container tracking vanished. One by one, phones across the room began ringing. "Boss, we've lost Singapore. Rotterdam just disconnected. Hamburg too." Marcus listened to another call. The banking network is under attack. Someone had launched a coordinated cyber assault against every system connected to Romano Logistics. Investors erupted into panic. The stock price began falling. News channels interrupted regular programming. Romano Global under coordinated attack. Exactly as Kane had planned. Marcus reached for his weapon. "Give the order." Damien calmly shook his head. "No!" Everyone stared at him. "Our enemies believe we're blind." He turned toward Ava. "Are we?" She looked at the frozen screens, then at the emergency backup server. Her eyes widened. "No. They're attacking what they think controls the company." She smiled. "But not what actually does." Damien nodded. "Show them." Ava walked toward an old metal cabinet, tucked into the corner of the command center. Marcus looked confused. "I thought those servers were retired." "They are," Damien answered. "For everyone except us." Ava inserted a heavy brass key, then another. Finally, she placed her palm against an old biometric scanner. The steel cabinet unlocked. Inside sat an entirely independent network. No internet, no cloud, no outside connections. Everything operated through encrypted private fiber lines built years before. Marcus stared in disbelief. "I never knew this existed." Damien replied quietly. "Only 3 people did. You, me, and Ava." She activated the system. Within seconds, every shipping route reappeared. Every financial ledger synchronized. Every container resumed transmitting. Outside the building, news anchors abruptly changed their headlines. Romano Global restores operations in under 4 minutes. Market prices recovered instantly. Kane's attack had failed. But something else appeared on Ava's monitor. A hidden transmission. Not outgoing, incoming. She enlarged the packet. A confidential file materialized. Its title sent a chill through the room. Romano Succession Protocol. She looked at Damien. "What is this?" For the first time since she had met him, he hesitated. Marcus slowly looked away. The entire command center fell silent. Damien walked toward the screen. His voice became unusually quiet. It was never supposed to be opened. Ava swallowed. But it just was. She clicked the file. One sentence appeared. "If Damien Romano dies, all control of the Romano Empire transfers to Ava Mitchell." Every person in the room stopped breathing. Ava turned toward Damien in disbelief. "You made me your successor." Damien met her eyes. "No. I made you the only person I trust to ensure this city doesn't burn." Before anyone could speak again, every light inside the vault suddenly went out. Emergency generators failed. The command center was plunged into darkness. Then a single red message illuminated every screen. "Checkmate. Nicholas Kane." Darkness swallowed the vault for exactly 3 seconds. Then, emergency lights flooded the command center with a deep crimson glow. No alarms, no panic, no shouting. More than 100 operators remained perfectly still. Ava looked around in disbelief. There, not reacting. Marcus calmly holstered the pistol he had instinctively drawn. They're waiting. For what? The boss. Damien stood motionless beneath the red emergency lights. He didn't even glance at the monitors. Instead, he checked his watch. 7 seconds. 8, 9. On the 10th second, every screen returned to life. The city map reappeared. Shipping routes resumed. Communications were restored. Only one screen remained red. Checkmate. Nicholas Kane. Damien looked at the message, then quietly smiled. So, you finally played your queen. Marcus understood immediately. You expected this. I designed it. Ava stared at him. You let him into the system. Damien slowly turned. No, I let him believe he got in. He walked toward the enormous digital map. One touch. The city disappeared. Another map emerged beneath it. Far larger, far more detailed. International shipping lanes, private satellite feeds, encrypted banking routes, safe houses, supply depots, airfields, dozens of cities, New York, London, Dubai, Singapore, Naples, Rio, Tokyo. Ava whispered, "This isn't New York," Marcus answered quietly. "It's the real empire." Damien folded his hands behind his back. What Kane hacked was a decoy. Every analyst in the room smiled, one by one, because they had spent nearly a year building that illusion. A fake command network, fake financial databases, fake communication routes. Everything Kane believed he had stolen had been manufactured specifically for him. Ava slowly looked at Damien. You've been feeding him lies. For 11 months, Marcus added. Every file. Every shipment. Every bank route. Everything. Kane built his entire strategy, using information Mr. Romano wanted him to see. Silence settled across the room. Ava finally understood. This had never been a cyber attack. It had been psychological warfare, and Kane had walked directly into it. Across the river, Nicholas Kane stood inside his own command center. His men erupted into celebration. We're inside. We've got their financial backbone. We have every shipping route. Ryan finally smiled for the first time in days. I told you. He can bleed. Nicholas watched the data streaming across dozens of monitors. Something felt wrong. Too easy. He frowned. Verify the cargo movements. An analyst froze. Sir, the ships aren't moving. What? They're still following Romano's schedules. Another analyst spoke. The banking network. It never disconnected. A third voice. Sir, these account numbers don't exist. Nicholas slowly turned. What did you say? They're fake. Every screen suddenly flickered. The Romano crest appeared. Then Damien Romano's face. A live transmission. No distortion. No delay. As though Damien were standing in the room. Good evening, Nicholas. The celebration stopped instantly. Ryan's blood ran cold. Damien continued calmly. You've spent 11 months stealing shadows. You've never touched my empire. Nicholas remained silent. You wanted to know where I keep my power. Damien looked directly into the camera. I keep it inside people. The transmission changed. Hundreds of photographs appeared. Warehouse managers, harbor workers, judges, bank presidents, union leaders, Coast Guard commanders, international shipping executives. Beside each photograph, one word, loyal. Damien spoke again. You thought I built an empire with fear. No, I built it with promises I never broke. The screen shifted once more. Another list appeared. This one far shorter. 7 names, each marked in red. Ryan Mercer, 3 accountants, 2 shipping supervisors, 1 customs officer, Nicholas Kane. Ryan frowned. "What is this?" Nicholas whispered. "Our network." Damien nodded. "Correct. You spent years placing people inside my organization. I spent years placing people inside yours." Every light inside Kane's headquarters suddenly went out. Not because of hackers, because the electricity had been cut. Outside, police sirens echoed through the docks. Federal agents, port authority officers, financial crimes investigators. Not one agency. 6. Moving simultaneously. Nicholas finally understood. Damien hadn't called the police. He had quietly handed 6 different agencies 6 different crimes. Each one had acted believing the case belonged to them. No one realized they were pieces on the same chessboard. Nicholas looked toward Ryan. "You brought me into his trap." Ryan stepped backward. No. You said." Nicholas drew a pistol. Ryan's face turned white. Before he could speak, the warehouse roof exploded with blinding floodlights. A voice thundered through loudspeakers. "Federal agents, drop your weapons." Chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked through the warehouse. Men scattered in every direction. Ryan threw himself behind a steel container. Nicholas disappeared into the smoke. Back inside the vault, Marcus watched the live drone feed. Kane escaped. Damien wasn't surprised. He always would. And Ryan. The drone zoomed closer. Ryan was running. Alone. Terrified. No guards. No allies. No Nicholas. No future. Marcus asked quietly. "Do we stop him?" Damien looked toward Ava. "What do you think?" She watched Ryan stumble through the rain-soaked docks. The man who had once mocked her, humiliated her, destroyed her life. She took a long breath. If he dies, the truth dies with him. Damien smiled. Exactly the answer he expected. "Marcus. Bring him in. No unnecessary force. He's finally ready to tell the truth." Hours later, Ryan sat alone inside an interrogation room, deep beneath the vault. No chains, no bruises, no threats, only silence. Damien entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He placed one in front of Ryan. Ryan stared at it. Why? Damien sat opposite him, because frightened men lie, tired men lie, men in pain lie, but men who believe they're finally safe. He slid the coffee closer. "Usually tell the truth." Ryan laughed weakly. "You've already won." Damien shook his head. "No, I've only removed the first piece. The real game hasn't started yet." Ryan slowly looked up. "What do you mean?" Damien opened a thin folder. Inside, a single photograph. Ryan's expression collapsed. No, it showed Nicholas Kane, shaking hands with a man Ryan had never expected to see. A United States senator. Behind them stood 2 international banking executives, and one face Ava immediately recognized from Romano Global's board of directors. Ava whispered, "My God." Damien closed the folder. This was never about stealing my company. He looked at both of them. They're trying to buy the entire city. Silence filled the room. Ryan finally broke. Tears welled in his eyes. "I'll tell you everything." Damien leaned back. "I know. That's why I kept you alive." Rain washed over Manhattan for 3 straight days. When it finally stopped, the city looked exactly the same. People hurried to work. Ships entered the harbor. The stock market opened. Children crossed the streets holding their parents' hands. No one realized how close New York had come to falling into the hands of men who viewed it as nothing more than another asset to own. because that was Damian Romano's greatest victory. When he won, the world never noticed a battle had been fought. 3 weeks later, Romano Global announced an emergency shareholders' assembly. Every major financial network covered the event live. Investors from 4 continents attended. Federal officials occupied the front rows. The board of directors looked unusually nervous. They knew today's meeting wasn't about quarterly profits. It was about judgment. Ava stood quietly behind the stage curtains. She wore a navy blue suit tailored with understated elegance. For the first time in years, she wasn't wondering whether people were staring at her weight. She no longer cared. Because she had finally learned something Ryan never understood. Confidence isn't something another person gives you. It's what remains after they fail to take it away. Marcus approached. Nervous? She smiled honestly. A little. You shouldn't be. Why? Because today, the whole city is about to meet the woman the boss trusted before anyone else did. On the opposite side of the building, Ryan Mercer sat inside a federal holding room under heavy guard. His plea agreement had been accepted. Everything he knew had been documented. Every payment. Every meeting. Every politician. Every shell company. Before being escorted away, Detective Olivia Grant stopped beside him. One question. Ryan looked up. What? When did you realize you had already lost? Ryan laughed quietly. The day Damian looked at me. Instead of shouting. Olivia frowned. That's your answer? Ryan nodded. If he had been angry, I'd have had a chance. But he wasn't. He'd already calculated every move I was going to make. Ryan looked toward the courtroom window. I wasn't fighting a man. I was fighting someone who had been planning 7 moves ahead for years. The shareholders' meeting began exactly at 10 o'clock. The massive auditorium fell silent as Damian Romano walked onto the stage. No introduction, no applause, only respect. He stood before the microphone. For 22 years, Romano Global has existed because people believed one promise. If you build honestly, if you work honestly, if you protect those beside you, we will protect you. He paused. In recent weeks, that promise was tested. Large screens illuminated. Evidence appeared. Not sensational headlines. Not dramatic videos. Only facts. Financial records. Wire transfers. Signed confessions. Government indictments. Every document connected Nicholas Kane's organization to corporate espionage, bribery, market manipulation, and organized financial crime. The evidence spoke for itself. Then Damian surprised everyone. He closed the presentation. I'm not here to celebrate. I'm here to introduce the person who actually saved this company. He turned toward the side entrance. Ava. The auditorium slowly turned. Ava walked onto the stage. Hundreds of executives rose instinctively. This time, no one saw an assistant. They saw the woman who had quietly prevented the collapse of one of the world's largest logistics empires. Damian stepped aside, giving her the center of the stage, not because she needed permission to stand there, because she had earned it. Ava looked across the audience. Only a month earlier, this same room had watched her life fall apart. Now, those same people waited to hear her speak. She took one steady breath. I've spent years believing that if I worked hard enough, eventually someone would notice. She smiled gently. I was wrong. The room listened carefully. People don't always notice. Sometimes they underestimate you. Sometimes they laugh. Sometimes they leave. She paused. But your value has never depended on their opinion. Silence. Then applause. Not because of polished words, because everyone recognized the truth in them. After the meeting, most executives left. Only Damian and Ava remained in the now empty boardroom. It was the very room where everything had begun. The sunlight reflected across the same marble floor where her engagement ring had once rolled away. Damien walked toward the large window overlooking the harbor. Without turning around, he asked, "Do you remember what Ryan said?" Ava nodded. "He said I wasn't wife material." Damien smiled faintly. "No. He said something much more revealing." She looked at him. He told the world he only knew how to measure appearances. He turned toward her. "I measure something else." "What?" "Loyalty, competence, courage, the ability to carry responsibility when nobody is watching." He took a slow step closer. The qualities that keep empires alive. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Damien reached into his briefcase. He removed a slim black folder. Ava opened it. Her eyes widened. It wasn't another employment contract. It wasn't stock options. It was a revised corporate charter. Across the first page, beneath Damien Romano's signature, were the words, "Chief Executive Partner, Ava Mitchell." She looked up in disbelief. "You built this company." He shook his head. "I built the structure. You built the trust inside it." She laughed softly. "I still don't understand why you trusted me before anyone else." Damien looked out toward the harbor, where hundreds of Romano cargo ships moved steadily through the water. "When I was 28, an old man taught me something. He said, 'Never choose the loudest person in the room. Choose the one still working after everyone else has gone home.'" He met her eyes. "I started watching you 5 years ago. You never knew. I watched you solve problems without asking for credit. I watched you protect people who could never repay you. I watched you stay loyal even when nobody thanked you. I didn't choose you because I needed an assistant. I chose you because one day I knew I'd need someone worthy of protecting everything I'd spent my life building." Tears filled Ava's eyes. Not because of romance. Because, for the first time in her life, someone had seen her completely. Not her appearance, not her insecurities, her character. She finally understood why Damien had never tried to rescue her from becoming stronger. He had simply refused to let the world convince her she was ordinary. She signed the charter. Damien extended his hand. She took it, not as his employee, not as someone who owed him gratitude, but as an equal, as partners. Perhaps, one day, something more. Outside the boardroom, Marcus watched through the glass for a brief moment before quietly walking away. One of the younger security officers smiled. "Should we go in?" Marcus shook his head. "No. The city will always need a man powerful enough to protect it." He glanced back toward Damien and Ava. "And every powerful man eventually needs one person he trusts more than power itself." Far below, the Romano fleet continued moving through New York Harbor. The city never knew who had saved it. It never knew how close it had come to disaster. And Damien Romano preferred it that way, because true power was never about making the world fear your name. It was about carrying a burden so quietly that the world never realized you had been holding it all along. Thank you for watching. If this story reminded you that true strength is measured by character, loyalty, and integrity, not appearance or status, leave a comment and tell us which moment stayed with you the longest. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more unforgettable stories of courage, justice, and extraordinary people who discover their true worth when the world least expects it.